Happy Sunday, March 15th. May you live in interesting times. I think that might be an understatement right now. I don't think there's anywhere on the planet that you could be where you aren't aware of what's going on in our world with the virus, etc. So I wanted to share with you a prayer that was written by Reverend Patricia Bass, who is the interim CEO of Unity Worldwide Ministries. And this is a prayer that all of our Unity communities are holding in these days. So I'll start out by sharing that with you. We know that God is a love that has no end and a power that knows no bounds. God's healing power of divine life is restoring, healing, and revitalizing our world this very moment. We let go of any fears or anxieties, and we affirm that all are safe, healthy, and protected. We bless all those who support us in maintaining vibrant, radiant health. We express divine life in all we think, say, and do. We bless our global family with radiant health, peace of mind, and abundant love. And so it is. So when I was contemplating this week and what I wanted to share with you, I was, of course, thinking of how the worldview out there, which in Unity we call human race consciousness. And from that point of view, life seems a little scary right now. It's definitely unknown. And so it kind of reminded me of, well, all I learned about rhinoceroses, or rhinoceri, I'm not sure, was from Pam Grout in EQ'd. And she said one good thing about rhinos is they have really bad eyesight. They're very nearsighted. And they can't tell from 15 feet a human or a tree. So when they're spooked, which would be kind of scary if you were around a rhino that got spooked, I suppose, what they do is whatever way they were pointed when they got alerted, what they do is they run in that direction forever until they are exhausted or they no longer feel a threat. So the idea is, if you're ever, I always like to give useful information. If you ever find yourself being confronted by a rhino, what you do, which I don't know if I would really do, is the rhino is charging towards you, just step aside and it'll go right on by you. But I was thinking about that this week because I was thinking a lot of fear thoughts that we've got going on right now are sort of like spooked, nearsighted rhinos, aren't they? They're kind of getting a direction and we get moving and it's kind of hard to pull the reins in and go, let's breathe. Because it feels like we're out of control. And, the best, so when I'm out of control, I don't know about you, but what happens is my ego starts to get in there and it's like, do something, do anything. When that might not necessarily be the best. And of course, right now we're talking about there are a lot of things that we can do. We can do things to protect ourselves physically, and those you've got a lot of information about. But right now, what I'm thinking is, how do we take care of ourselves emotionally and spiritually? And we know in Unity that we create our experience with our thoughts and our beliefs. And, whatever energetic frequency I'm at, that's going to attract what's going on in my world. So I want to make sure I'm not in urgency. I'm not in overreaction. I'm not mindlessly focusing on a problem when it doesn't accomplish anything. So it's kind of like don't feed the weeds. If you're a gardener, you know what that meant. I'm not much of a gardener, but I still would get that, don't feed the weeds. Be careful who you talk to. Be careful who you listen to. Use our wise discernment. Because, the universe is constantly conspiring in our favor, is it not? I love what Charles Fillmore, co-founder of Unity, said. He said, when you pronounce every experience good and of God, by that mental attitude you will call forth only the good. What seemed error will disappear, and only the good will remain. This is the law, and no one can break it. It's the law. I love that. The universe is constantly conspiring for our good. Irregardless of appearances out there, we want to hold to that the universe has our back. And we want to replace the negativity that comes our way with positive thoughts. And maybe that's just positive plans. So I was thinking about that for myself right now. One of the things is, well, eventually, because I'm in one of those risk groups simply because, believe it or not, I'm old enough. And so what came to me is like, well, what am I going to do with my time? Because if I'm going to be spending it not going out to eat like I like to do, but more times at home, I was like, well, you know what I did? I went and got some more jigsaw puzzles because I have fun with those. And I might as well entertain myself while I'm at home. It's like, well, what are some things that you can do, activities with your family? This might be a really wonderful time to do some things that you don't normally do, especially if the kids end up being at home or whatever those things, those changes might be. I was also reminded of a story about a young man named Doug. And he was informed that the blood transfusion he had received after being injured in a car crash in Nigeria caused him to become HIV contaminated. And he was just one semester before finishing law school. Initially, Doug felt he'd been issued a death sentence. But he decided to take control of his life with his thoughts, and he began a complete program of exercise, nutrition, and then he also got the latest drugs that were prescribed for him. And he said, right away I began to feel hopeful because I was taking specific positive action. Just that alone was a boost to my morale, but the best part of my commitment to life was my solid, great expectation. I expected to feel strong. I expected vibrant health. I expected to be a victor and not a victim. It took incredible effort at first to push away the negative thoughts, but my commitment was so strong that staying positive got easier and easier. Although I still am not able to dispel every negative thought that comes into my head, I have to say it eventually became enough of a habit that it altered my overall perspective on things. So after being diagnosed HIV positive, I finished law school, passed the bar, and joined a law firm in St. Louis. I still follow my daily regime. I feel good. I'm happy. And I'm a true believer that great expectations bring great results. And if you want living proof, I'm it. I love that story about Doug. Because I think of Doug is what I like to call proanoid. And that's the word I got from pronoia is an antidote for paranoia by Bob Bresney. And he did say it's not a real word, but pronoia is the belief that the universe is conspiring in our favor, versus paranoid, which is that false belief that the universe is out to get you. And when I was reading about the pronoia and I thought of Doug, it's like there are things going on in our planet right now that we can't control. But there are so many miraculous things happening that if I focus on those, it shifts perspective. So when I got up this morning, for one thing, I got up. Second is I had, even though I wasn't aware of it, I had been being breathed all night long. I didn't have to attend. My heart was beating all night long. Other things were happening all night long that are good. So those things happened, and then I opened my eyes. And when I opened my eyes, I looked around and I saw the colors around me. And of course, all that is made possible because we've got this great burning sun out there, which, is this globe of fire that's like, nuclear detonations going off all the time. But it just so happens to be the perfect distance from our planet so that it gives us heat, it gives us light, but it doesn't fry us, and it's close enough so we don't freeze. Oh, interesting. How did that happen? Oh, coincidence? I say no. I say that the universe is conspiring to give us heat and light and vision and all those things, and the sun is one of the ways it assists us in doing that. There are so many things that are happening because there's a divine intelligence in charge of it all, isn't there? I heard a little story, and I liked it. It was about a little girl who got lost in the woods, and for a number of hours, so that they had brought out search people to go look for her. And one of the searchers found her, and she was sitting under a tree, and he asked, when he reassured her and said, well, weren't you afraid as they were walking out of the woods? And she said, I wasn't afraid because I knew God is here. And the man said, well, how do you know that? And she answered, because I'm here. So God is in this. Godness is in what is happening right now. And we are short-sighted, perhaps, in seeing, because circumstances do not look to my preference, definitely, I don't know anybody's preference, but we can imagine, and we know that God is in it, and we can claim good to come out of it. I have a practice which I adopted a number of years ago from another Unity friend, and that is every time something happens that is not to my preference, I require from the universe, I declare, that I would like 10 times the blessings as to the inconvenience of my not preference. And that seems to work pretty darn good because we know what we claim comes our way. So when you have things that are happening right now, and we got inconveniences, we got a stock market that's interesting, we got social distancing, which wasn't a thing until about a week ago, or at least a couple months ago. I didn't know what that was. Social distancing sounded like it was a rude thing that actually I'm glad I wasn't part of. Now it's kind of like, oh yeah, that's why you stand back in the line at the store. Those things are happening. We don't understand what this is all about. But I'm going to trust that the universe has a great idea of what can happen from this. And it hasn't even been created perhaps yet, because we know that it's an abundant universe. There are unlimited possibilities of what the next moment looks like. And that's why we get to be part of that creation. And so when we hold a vision that says good comes from this, there will be good coming from this that we could not begin to imagine. So I was thinking it was perfect. This month in Unity, often we celebrate judgment, wisdom. It's one of our divine gifts from Godness. And this is what Charles Fillmore said in The Revealing Word. He said, judgment is a faculty of the mind that can be exercised in two ways: from sense perception or spiritual understanding. If its action be based on sense perception, the conclusions are fallible and often condemnatory. If based on spiritual understanding, they are safe. So the ability, it's like, how do we use that? I want to come from a spiritual perspective, which is sort of we call it the higher view, don't we? We see and we claim that good is happening. I've always loved, one of my favorite quotes was always from Richard Bach in Illusions. And he said, the mark of your ignorance is the depth of your belief in injustice and tragedy. What the caterpillar calls the end of the world, the master calls a butterfly. And sometimes it can feel like the end of the world, and you probably have those experiences. But we know that the universe continues. Life does not end. Everything continues. And so I've really worked to remove tragedy from my vocabulary over the years. And I've done a pretty good job with that. Now, my piece then is, okay, if I eliminate this as not a tragedy, then I want to make sure that I'm not into resistance to what is. The ego wants to be in resistance because it's trying to keep me safe. And I understand all that, but my ego is not the brightest part of me. So, and I like what Edwene Gaines, she's a wonderful Unity minister, and she says, not all our good tastes like chocolate and smells like turkey and dressing. I like that. I would prefer it did taste like chocolate. But just not all our good looks like that. It comes up in appearance that we go, yay, right away. But I want to go, yay, for what I am anticipating are going to be all the blessings that are coming. Expect blessings regardless of appearances. Because since God is in every experience, and God is good, only good can come from this experience. That's my affirmation. I'll say it again. Since God is in every experience, and God is good, only good can come from this experience. I was thinking this week about a story. It was a man whose boat got caught on a reef and capsized. And so he was stranded on a deserted island for months. And he did all those things that you would probably do if you were stranded on a deserted island. Made himself a little hut, made a little shelter, so forth and so on. And then he'd go out during the day looking for food. And one day while he was out looking for food and he looked back towards where his encampment was, he saw smoke. And he realized when he got back that the encampment, the shelter he had created to protect himself, had totally burned and was totally destroyed. And he was so dejected. It was like all that work he went to finally get in a shelter and it's gone. And then he saw a speck in the distance in the water. The speck got closer and closer, and it was a boat. And the Coast Guard rescued him. And of course, as he got on the boat and he was talking with the Coast Guard folks, he learned that the Coast Guard caught on because they saw the fire. So what he thought would be to his detriment ended up being a blessing. And that's a good story for me to always remember, because sometimes I can judge prematurely of just what is in the immediate time and not look at the bigger picture. I don't want to do that. I also decided this week that, you know how the stock market twice this week took a 15-minute break because it was going in free fall. In other words, it was going into negative. It had gone. It was going into fear. And they have this break system that they stop it for 15 minutes and everybody takes a breather. 15 minutes is good. I'm thinking 3 days is better. So when I start becoming concerned about what is going on, what I do instead is I say, okay, I will give myself 3 days, and then if it's interesting, I'll start worrying about it then. What usually happens is by 3 days, I've moved on. Or I have a different perspective because I've had time to think from that higher perspective and get some different ideas. So I invite you to, before you choose panic, which is always a choice, we can always choose to panic or fear or whatever it is, take 3 days. Enjoy it. Do some jigsaw puzzles, whatever it is you want to do, but spend 3 days in whatever is affirmative action, affirmative thought. Then expect major blessings. For every inconvenience you have, whatever that might look like, expect major blessings. And then start looking around for them. And then start counting them, because that's the fun part, is when you start seeing how many there are that are coming your way. I love doing that. And I wanted to close out with a story that I thought fit pretty well. And it's about a young bride named Thelma Thompson. And she went to live with her husband, who was stationed at a U.S. Army training camp near the Mojave Desert in California. And this is during World War II. And from the first day, she hated the place. She hated the dust, the loneliness, the tiny shack in which they had to live, the unbearable heat. It was 125 degrees in the shade of a cactus, and the relentless wind. And there was no one to talk to but the native people, and they couldn't speak English. She had a powerful faith that she was in a living hell, and it wasn't about to change. Finally, she became so utterly wretched, so full of self-pity, that she wrote her parents and told them that she was coming home. Her father answered her letters with just 2 lines. 2 lines which Thelma said will always sing in her memory, and which she said completely altered her life. And these were the 2 lines. 2 men looked out from prison bars. One saw the mud, the other saw the stars. So according to Thelma, she read those 2 lines over and over until she determined to find the good in her situation. She made up her mind to look for the stars. She made up her mind to approach life with a sense of faith and trust that there was no reason at all. It couldn't make sense of what was happening, but at the heart of it, that everything was compassionate and good. Tentatively, she reached out to the natives, and to her surprise, they received her overtures towards friendship warmly. When she showed interest in their weaving and pottery, they gave her presents of their favorite pieces which they refused to sell to the tourists. She studied until she became an expert on the various forms of cactus and yuccas and the Joshua trees. She learned about prairie dogs, watched for the desert sunsets, and hunted for seashells that had been left there when the sands of the desert had been an ocean floor. The Mojave Desert didn't change. The Indians didn't change. The wind still blew incessantly. The temperatures continued to reach 125 degrees, and the tiny shack in which she lived with her husband was still claustrophobic. But over time, none of that mattered anymore, because Thelma had redirected her faith. By redirecting her faith, she transformed a wretched experience into what she later described as the most exciting adventure of her life. Instead of wallowing in self-pity, she wrote a book, a novel about the desert, which was published under the title Bright Ramparts, and which brought her some degree of success and personal satisfaction. She looked out of her self-made prison and put her faith in the stars instead of the mud. So my wish for you this week is that while you continue to take good self-care, that when you look out about you and listen to what's going on around you, that you experience the beauty of innumerable stars. And so it is. So now I just invite you to get comfortable. If you haven't done so already, just feel relaxed wherever you're seated. Take a few gentle breaths. And if you haven't already done so, I invite you to gently close your eyes. And know that right now, you can choose to follow my words, or you can choose to go elsewhere. Wherever you go will be perfect. As you continue to gently breathe, you can feel that life energy flowing through you. And if you like, you can let your focus land gently on your heart space. Continue to gently breathe. God and I are one. We are one with Spirit, Source, the ground of being. We are one with the divine energy that created the universe. We are one with the great mystery of life. And as we allow these truths to settle in, to rest in our heart space, we can feel an expansion in our chest. We're able to breathe more deeply. And as we breathe, we are reminded that actually we're being breathed by the One, by Godness. Our heart beats the divine pulse of life. And as that amazing divine life flows through us, we sense the love of Spirit healing us at our core. The faith of God flows freely through us and heals our mind and emotions. We observe any negative thoughts and gently replace them with truth. We shift our focus to the good in and around us, and our emotions gently elevate to high vibrations of gratitude and love. I invite you to spend the next moment or so seeing in your mind's eye just some of the thousands of wonderful things in your life right now. Go ahead now. See the good. No matter how upside down things in your life may appear, let us have no fear, because we know this. We know that all of creation is conspiring to shower us with blessings. Withhold judgment for what may appear to be a huge disappointment, because it may prove to be simply a clearing away of the old, a last gasp of limited thinking, which will usher in a more wonderful experience than we could currently imagine. Divine life is crazily in love with us, brazenly and innocently in love with us. The universe is conspiring in our favor. We know that God is a love that has no end and a power that knows no bounds. God's healing power of divine life is restoring, healing, and revitalizing our world in this very moment. We let go of any fears or anxieties, and we affirm that all are safe, healthy, and protected. We bless all those who support us in maintaining vibrant, radiant health. We express divine life in all we think, say, and do. We bless our global family, seeing radiant health, peace of mind, and abundant love. We bless our global family, seeing radiant health, peace of mind, and abundant love. And so it is. Abundant blessings. So I invite you to take a few more gentle breaths. Feel that life energy flowing through you, all the way out to your fingers, your toes, the tip of your nose. And ever so gently, when you're ready, you can gently open your eyes, feeling alert, yet relaxed, energized, yet at peace. Know that this is an abundant universe, and this universe has our back. And so it is. Namaste.